Hello there. Welcome back to another video on my series on how to build trees in Minecraft. I hope you find what I'm doing helpful for you to build your own trees. And if you have any suggestions for trees you'd like me to work on, please leave a comment in my video. In this episode, we're looking at the Scots Pine. The Scots Pine tree, unsurprisingly, is native to Scotland, but also across Northern Europe and Eurasia. It's known as a pioneer species due to its ability to thrive in poor soils and exposed locations, regenerating the landscapes it grows in. This means you can often find them in amazing locations and can provide some spectacular backdrops. Each tree is a large project and has a lot of work to undertake in survival, so I take care in thinking about where they should go or how they'll work in the landscape before embarking on a full build. With that in mind, my process is a bit different in how I go about making their shapes, sculpt them as an outline before filling them in. These trees are characterized by their tall, straight and exposed trunks, transitioning from a deeply fissured grey bark at the base to an orange-red colour further up. The canopy often forms at high level, with the lower branches naturally dropping off. That being said, you can often find dramatic mid-level branches extending out far, with a miniature crown of leaves at the end. This can make for some fantastic silhouettes and they're great for framing views. Let's pop over to the creative server and I'll show you how I go about it. Scots Pine often grow up to around 35 to 40 meters. So we're going to start by building up the tree with any block to about the height that I want it to be, and then start drawing out the shape of how I want the tree to look. I do this by looking at photos of trees that I want to replicate, and I think about, well, how will this work with the backdrop that I have in mind? You can do this easily in your survival server, and I definitely recommend doing that and thinking about doing a bit in 3D towards the end, just seeing how it looks from different sides of the views. Once we're happy with the height and the framing, we should start working on the bark. As I mentioned, the trees have these kind of deep fissures at the base, but as they go further up, then the bark falls away and becomes a bit ready at the top. Using the outline that we drew previously, I'm now starting to draw the branches out to meet them. If you look at photos of Scots pines, you often find that the crowns form on top of the branches. So that way, these longer ones that we're producing are going to come underneath it. And then we're going to have some branches kind of reaching up from the larger ones that we built to meet the leaves above. We're going to use spruce leaves mostly for this build. Sometimes we have some birch, but we'll get onto that later on. At this point, I'm going to start making the branches move forward and back to create more of a 3D shape, and sometimes pulling some additional branches out from it. In addition to this, we can throw some dead or dying branches kind of sticking out at low level. So to make the tree feel a bit more alive and less just vertical blocks, we're going to throw some spruce trapdoors in the bottom. That means when you look at it from a distance and you see that silhouette, you'll get more of a natural shape forming. Using the same technique as we've done before, I'm going to start creating some more large branches using some tough stairs and slabs and some spruce fences and gates to make for the smaller branches reaching up to those individual crowns of leaves. And then we just start filling it in. Now that you can see the general shape forming, let's just watch this and fast forward and I'll provide some little bits of commentary to give you some hints and tips as we go along. You can see how I'm using different types of branches. I quite enjoy using the spruce trapdoors to form some more subtle forms of the branches because you can then get more than just hacks or full blocks. Now that we're further up the tree, we're going to be using jungle wood. I feel the jungle wood's much more representative of what Scots pines look at higher level, but the transition is just too harsh, going from the acacia or the tough block, so I quite like using spruce as an intermediate. It's still pretty harsh in terms of that connection, so you can hide that by putting some leaves around, as you'll see I'll do in a bit, but also some glow lichen, which I'll show again later on as well. So you can see now what I'm doing is just filling in the whole of this crown, which has got a much more of a 3D shape because of how we've been pulling the branches out, and just building it up to start having a much more fuller canopy at the high level. As we're rotating, you can just get a real sense of this being a tree now. When you're seeing a Scots pine from real life and you look from below, you can pretty much see the sky through it. It's a very transparent tree, and so you've got to be careful that you manage to do that. What's also cool about the Scots pine is you can see the branches from below, but when you're looking down from the top, it's mostly just leaves. So you get a very different perspective on the tree from a silhouette, from ground level, and from high level. And I think I've managed to carry this off quite well on this tree. Now that we're at the top level, I'm just going wild with the fences, gates, and trapdoors, forming a network of branches which is going to hold up the canopy. Once that's in, we want to have mostly spruce because the Scots Pine has this very blue kind of feel to it, but then birch leaves just to help like pick up where sunlight's touching it. With the crown, I'm just going to build a big circle going around it, and then once I have that, I'm going to start pulling the tree down, thinking about how it's going to look from that silhouette. And you notice as I'm building this, I'm always taking a step back, having a look what it's like in the silhouette, and then going back in to sculpt it. It's going to be a lot harder doing this in survival, but the happy glasses again is great at doing it. It'd be amazing if you could just have a spectator camera to keep an eye on seeing how you're sculpting it, but that's why these trees take so long. Now that we're coming to the end of it, I'm throwing some spruce trapdoors at the bottom of the branches. It just helps connect those pieces a bit better, and I'm going to throw some glow lichen in, and it just helps merge the different forms of timber in the bark. For the second tree, we're going to take a slightly different approach. We're still sculpting out the form beforehand, looking at a photo of it, but this one's going to be much more like ones which I found in the forest. There's lots of other Scots pines around. They're going to have some pretty wild branches at high level, rather than just being a vertical base, and that's the kind of thing I'm going to go for here. As you can see here, I'm splitting the trunk into two much stronger branches at the top. And then surrounding that, I'm just going to build the smaller branches first, so we can get a much better understanding of what all the shape of the branches and twigs are going to be like from the bottom of the tree before we fill up the canopy. That differs from the previous one, which I had a strong image in mind from a photograph, and so I was just replicating that. So as you can see now, we have this interesting shape with all the branches pre-formed. At this point, I'm going to start building it out to make the canopy. Remember, with the leaves, they're going to be forming on the tops of the branches. The leaves are there to catch light, and so there's no point in them being below the canopy. This is why those branches stick out so far, because they're desperately trying to get some more light, and once they start losing light, that's when the branches drop off. I'm just going around here with spruce leaves mainly, but then filling it in with birch just to get those highlights and making it not just being like one homogeneous block of leaves. We've ended up with a different shape here from the other one. And that's the cool thing about sculpting at first using the leaves as an outline, so you can choose how it should look in the environment. So there we are. Two pretty cool Scots pines are ready for you to replicate in your own world. The key thing is making that outline first, and then you can do what you want with it. These trees are pretty epic in scale. They're amazing to look at. They are fantastic at framing the view, but they do take up a lot of time. I would strongly recommend you use them for like statement pieces in the landscape, but I definitely wouldn't say make a forest out of them. If you want to do that, look at stuff like VW spruce trees. I might do a tutorial just to show you my versions of that sometime in the future. But yeah. Enjoy it. I hope you found this helpful, and I look forward to seeing you in my next episode. Bye!